The minute the weather starts to get cold, people think that you have to move indoors, you have to do all your workouts and be active inside of a gym. And as much as I love lifting weights and I do love treadmills and running, there's still ways to be active when the weather starts to get cold. There's still things that you have to do in your yard. And in this video, I'm going to show you 2 things that I've been working on this winter. I teamed up with Troy-Bilt. They're sponsoring these projects. And the whole idea is that we want to blow off winter. So I actually am turning this area, this weedy area, into a garden. You'll see that in just a moment. But let's jump over to the other part of my yard. You've seen this garden in the previous videos that I've done. And, using this brush cutter, I needed that because remember I did the fence painting and I put a garden over here in the back of my yard, and everything I planted totally didn't grow. If you see these dead weeds here, it was completely overrun by Japanese stilt grass. This stuff is so invasive. If you don't remove it as soon as it starts to invade your yard, it takes over everything, and it just sort of creeped into this part of my yard. So even though I didn't do anything about it last year, I thought this is a good time to do it. It's all dead. Let's remove it. I'm using the brush cutter here in order to just kind of separate the weeds from the ground so that I could easily rake it up and get rid of it. But most of the time, people wait until spring in order to get started on these projects. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to wait till spring. There's things that you can do in the wintertime that actually is really good for you, because most times, what are we doing during the winter, right? We're staying inside, we're watching movies. At least that's what I like to do. We're watching, trash television, and we're not actually getting outside and moving our bodies, and we tend to eat a little bit more. So taking a yard that looked like that and turning it into this, you're actually getting a jump start on your spring activities that you're doing in the yard and outside, but you're also doing things for your body. You're lifting heavy things, you're moving, you're bending over, so your back and your legs are getting a good workout. But not to mention, it's good for you mentally because you're outside, you've got sunshine on you, and you feel like you've done something good, right? You're not just inside eating junk food all winter. So I felt really good and happy about the weeds that I picked. I turned this into a place that's kind of ready for planting come spring. But one thing I wanted to do is take all these leaves and use them as compost in my garden. A lot of times my yard is literally it's where leaves come to die. They all fall in my yard. So with a nice backpack blower from Troy-Bilt and just gathering them all up into one area, you can just put them into containers and drop them off in your garden. Don't feel like you have to bag them up like my neighbor did across the street and then send them off to the county. You can use this for your garden, and this will amend the soil so that as they break down over time, it's going to help to enrich that soil instead of having to go and actually buy leaf mold. I typically would buy leaf mold, but over the last couple of years, I've been trying to make my own and just breaking the leaves down. Now, you can mulch these. You don't have to. It will take longer for them to break down, but if you mulch them, that's great. So once that was done, it was time to move over to this other part of my yard. This is right behind my she shed, and you see that it's kind of a mess. I've got all these dead branches poking out. And whoever originally planted these Leyland cypresses, they just planted them too close and there's no sunlight, and the lower branches just died. And over the years, they just needed to be just trimmed. And so using the Troy-Bilt tool here, I can actually put on the chainsaw attachment and easily just clean up all of these branches. This will cut up to 4 inches, which is great. And I actually found this to be a lot of fun to use. This is something that I'd been wanting to do for a long time, is to clean up some of these trees. And because of this project, it gave me the inspiration, you know what, I'm going to turn this space behind my she shed into a garden. And you see that there's a lot of overgrown trees and shrubs that I literally never have tackled this part of my yard. We just kind of forgot about it. And now that I've got the she shed there, I want something that's pretty, that maybe an outdoor space that I can go to, or even invite friends over and entertain over in this area. But the way it didn't look before, I couldn't do it. So it felt really good to get outside and work on these projects because it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And it really, me personally, I think it really feels good when you finally tackle that thing you've been avoiding. And for me, it's been these branches and things that are just building up in my yard. Now, one of the cool projects that I really wanted to do was to take this old headboard of mine and turn it into a bench. This is not a new project. People have done these for many of years. You've seen them on social media, but this bed had been sitting outside for probably about the last year, and I was actually just going to take it to the dump, but I thought this is a great opportunity to use this to make a bench. And here at Thrift Diving, I don't get to do as many upcycle projects because I don't have as much need for furniture, but there's always a little corner of the yard where you can take an old bench, get some 2x4s, cut them up, and just turn this into a fun project that didn't take very long to create. So you see that I'm adding some 2x4s here in order to create some framing for this headboard in order to make a bench. Now I'm using a regular 2x4 pine here, and I figured, well, I'll just use a regular 2x4 because the headboard is pine. The main thing is number one, using exterior screws so that they don't rust. And if you are using just a regular indoor-outdoor paint with pine, you want to get a good top coat. So I'll be going over this with an oil-based top coat to protect it. And I added as many screws as I could. I added 2 pieces of pine boards to the top to make the seat. And those will also be covered in an oil-based top coat. But this color is so pretty. And I could have gone with the original color, but yeah, even though that would have matched my shed, I still love this turquoise. It's beautiful. All right, so once this part was done, it was time to move back outdoors. Now, most of the limbs that I had to cut were pretty small, but this Troy-built pole saw can cut up to 4-inch thick diameter limbs. So if you've got projects around your house where you need to cut some limbs, it can cut up to 4 inches. So it's definitely a tool that I'm glad to have in my toolbox. Now on the side of my house, I forgot that I had this really cool stone bench that the previous homeowner had left from like 13 years ago when we moved in. It was so heavy. These parts weren't heavy, but trying to get this stone and sit this on top, this was a workout. But it's going to be great once I fill this area in with mulch and I'm able to do more planting once spring comes. It's really going to come together, and I wanted to have kind of a pathway going through this garden so that you can stop off if you want to have a seat or if you just want to kind of stroll through the garden. So these stepping stones, they were only about like less than $1.50, and that will be a great way to allow people to just kind of walk through, have a seat if you want. But we also need some pretty flowers. So planting them is really simple if you have a drill, and just get an auger like this so that you can plant some tulips or whatever bulbs that you want to plant. And it may not be too late to do it. I don't know where you live and how cold it is, but here in Maryland, we've been having some really cold days and then some days that are a little warmer. So the ground wasn't frozen when I was able to plant these. And I went down about 5 or 6 inches very easily with this auger, filled in some plant food, and then dropped 1 bulb in each hole. And I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, because I've never planted bulbs before. So I don't know if they're going to actually come up. We'll see. I will actually fill you in on that. I added a little bit of water because it was cold outside. I couldn't attach the hose in order to get a good sprinkling of water. I added some curtain lights to help define the area. And this is what it looked like before I got started. Now, I'm not totally done, but you can see that everything's been cleared out. The only thing I need to do now is when the warm weather comes, I need to kill off whatever weeds are going to come up in this area. And then I can bring in a truckload of mulch and just mulch this entire area. And I also plan to install a fence back behind these trees so that I can close off my entire yard. But once the fence is there, it's really going to feel private. And it's going to feel like an oasis. Now, what would be great is to actually get a water feature back here. We'll see. Maybe if I can get like a solar-powered water feature, that would be great for this garden. Because I want this to be a place where we can come and relax, bring friends, family, and it's beautiful. And if you just want to sit on the bench and think, then this is going to be the area for it. I cannot wait to see what it looks like when it's completely done. But you can do this too. Don't feel that you have to wait till spring to do this. If you've got a tool, if you've got a to-do list, you can get started on some of these things right now. And once spring comes, you'll already have a jump on some of the tasks that have to be done before you start making things pretty. So get outside and feel good about moving your body, It makes you feel good mentally. You feel strong. And when you come in, when it's a cold day and you're sweating and your nose is running, I don't know about you, but that is a pretty productive day for me. All right, so go to @TroyBuilt on Instagram to learn more about their tools. Thank you so much for them sponsoring this. And I can't wait to see what you create. Find me at Thrift Diving on Instagram or thriftdiving.com, and I'll see you next project.